Well-wishers have lined the streets of King's Lynn in Norfolk to greet the Queen as she marks exactly 60 years as monarch. In a message to the people, she has renewed her vow to serve and thanked the public for the wonderful support and encouragement given to her over the past 6 decades. The only other British sovereign to reach 60 years on the throne was the Queen's great-great-grandmother, Victoria. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell is in King's Lynn for us now. Nick.
Yes, 60 years ago today, the reign of Queen Elizabeth II began. Now, normally she spends the day quietly at Sandringham, where her late father, George VI, died. But because this is the moment that her Diamond Jubilee officially begins, she's been this morning here in King's Lynn to receive the first of what will undoubtedly be many Diamond Jubilee greetings. She has recommitted herself to serve, renewing the pledges she made at the time of her accession. In a Diamond Jubilee message, the Queen has said she's been deeply moved by the messages of support she's received as she marks the 60th anniversary of her coming to the throne. At King's Lynn Town Hall, where photographs of previous visits by the royal family are on display, the Mayor delivered a loyal address and spoke for many.
For 60 years, Your Majesty has given dedicated and exemplary service to the people of this country and the Commonwealth.
60 years ago this morning, the nation had been stunned when the BBC interrupted its programmes to announce the death of the Queen's father, King George VI.
This is London. It was announced from Sandringham at 10:45 today, February the 6th, 1952, that the King, who retired to rest last night in his usual health, passed peacefully away in his sleep earlier this morning.
It's hard now fully to appreciate the impact the death of Britain's wartime king had on the country. Alistair Donald Campbell was 10. He was at school. A Frenchman, a veteran of World War I, was taking a French class.
Halfway through that class, one of the other staff came in and whispered something into the teacher's ear. Suddenly we were conscious that this grown man sitting in front of us was crying, which for a child of our generation and in the 1950s, you didn't often see grown men, especially in public, expressing emotion of that kind. He recovered himself. He slowly walked to the chalkboard and wrote the words, "Le roi est mort, vive la reine." And that was how I learnt the news of King George VI's death.
The new Queen, Elizabeth, was in Kenya at the time of her father's death. She was just 25 years old. She returned to London to be greeted by Prime Minister Winston Churchill and his cabinet. At her accession council, she pledged to continue the work of her beloved father and to serve Britain and the other countries of which she is monarch. This morning, on her last few days in Norfolk before returning to Buckingham Palace, she was receiving the first of the thousands of greetings which will convey the country's thanks for 60 years of service. And of course it will be some weeks, by which time hopefully it will be a whole lot warmer before those Diamond Jubilee events really get underway with visits by the Queen and her husband to different parts of the country.
Nick, thank you very much.
Now, the Queen's been out and about in Norfolk this morning, marking the day 60 years ago when she came to the throne. She started the day in King's Lynn and then moved on to a primary school in Sandringham. Our chief reporter, Kim Riley, is there now.
Yeah, I must give it its proper title, Stuart. Sandringham Infant and Nursery School. And just over an hour ago, there was a great scene, actually, in the school hall. 130 3- to 7-year-olds were performing a special show, and the big guest of honour watching it, of course, was the Queen. They took her through the 6 decades since she came to the throne, 60 years ago today. Why did she choose to come here, I asked. Well, the children invited her, I was told, and they were absolutely thrilled that she accepted. Earlier, I have to say, you could see that people were really enjoying it in there. Earlier, a rather more formal occasion at the town hall in King's Lynn, that's just literally 6 or 7 miles away, where a crowd had gathered, crowd of people who sometimes follow her around, who support her, and some who remembered those events of 60 years ago.
Well, this is a historic day, isn't it? And I think it's wonderful for King's Lynn, and indeed for Norfolk, that she's chosen to start her Diamond Jubilee year in this town, in our county.
Our headmistress didn't call us into the hall to make any kind of announcement, so we thought it was just a false alarm, because when we got home we found out that the sad news was that the King had died and the Princess Elizabeth would be returning as Queen.
Well, the Queen heard a loyal address from the Mayor of King's Lynn, Colin Sampson. He praised the Queen's dedicated and exemplary service during all those years. And about an hour ago, she left here. There were lines of kids all lined up with their flags. And we didn't think she was going to do a little walkabout, but in fact she did, and she beamed. We know it's a bittersweet day for her, a day, of course, that her father died 60 years ago, but she really does seem to enjoy being around small children, and certainly that was the case today.
Kim, thank you very much.